Okay, so he kind of just went over compensation part. I had planned to like walk through exactly how I do my full buyer's representation. So what do you want? I mean, like, do you want me to just kind of scan through and then talk only compensation section, or do you want me to just kind of?
I would like to present like a short form, like
Okay.
I'm a new buyer that maybe you just met.
Okay.
And then if you have time, do the
Okay.
long form, like gonna be a long-term client.
Okay, so my first initial conversation with the buyer is usually, let's just say, over the phone. And I actually have like a personalized like buyer step-by-step guide that I've made. And I email that to them. I get their information, their wants, their needs. Ask if they've talked to a lender. If they haven't, I'll, send some and they can get in contact with them. And then whenever I choose to sit down and meet with them, I print off the guide for them too. I always have like, this is my buyer's guide. It has the guide and the contract, or the agreement, sorry, it's not a contract. The agreement, and I just kind of walk through everything and just give them their options and ask them questions and let them ask me questions as we go. All right, so with the short form, I think all I would do is, so if you just want to see one listing, because I understand this is a huge process and you want to be able to build a relationship with the person and trust the person, and I know sometimes that comes first. So if you're not comfortable with fully signing an agreement yet, we can completely do that. And how that would look is this is an agreement, it's not a contract, so it can be amended or terminated at any point. But once we start to develop that relationship, all we need to do is amend this and get to a little bit more of a formal agreement so that I can fully represent you in the best way possible. So you have a couple options on here. We can just put the specific address that you want to see, and we can choose one of two services. You can choose a full service, which means I can open the door for you, I can answer any questions, give you any advice, and during that amount of time, I usually do about 3 days. That gives you time to see the property, think about it, let me, ask me any questions, and see if you're comfortable with me. And with the full service, I can give you advice. I can act as your your realtor. Sorry, act as if I'm representing you as your realtor. You can also choose a showing service, which just allows me to open the door for you only. I can't give you any advice. I can only give you information that is public knowledge. So you have either one of those options to do that. If you plan on getting to a little bit more formal agreement, let's do the full showing service. That way I can give you any advice. We can talk about the home. We can start to develop that relationship.
Well, I'm just a first-time home buyer. I don't understand all this. I just saw the sign and the address. I want to look in the house.
Yeah.
So what are you saying I need to do?
So by law, we have to have some kind of agreement to even open a door. So like I said, this is not a contract. It's just an agreement showing that either you're going to have a full service for me to open the door, or I'm just going to be a showing service to open the door for you. You can see the house and then decide what you want to do at that point. So this just allows us to get in the door. So at that point, you can just decide, do you want me to fully represent you during those few days for you to see that house, or do you just want me to open the door for you during that time?
Yeah, I might want the door open and have some questions.
That's okay. We can do that too. And then after that, if you're comfortable with it, we can sit down, go over everything, and I just want you to be completely comfortable with your decision.
Okay. Is there a charge for me coming in the door?
So I know some realtors, you will see them charging. However, I feel like that is my job to you to show you the house. This is like the whole process. I'm not going to charge you for me to open the door for you. I don't think that is important right now. I feel like we just need to get you in the door, see the house, and get you comfortable with the process.
Okay. So if you open the door and I have a few questions, you can answer that. I don't even have a lender. So
Okay.
What do I do? I have no clue.
Well, in order to start giving you that kind of advice, you're going to have the full service box on here checked so that I can start giving you the advice, because at that point, all I can give you is any information that is public knowledge, which is like bedrooms, baths, square footage. But if you want me to start giving you any advice or answering any of those questions, at that point, I would technically need to be representing you. And so we would just mark the full service box at that point.
Okay. Say, I want to buy a house. I need guidance. So I'll check the full service box, so where
Okay.
we go from there?
So let's go see the house, and we'll make sure it says full service, and then you can ask me any questions. We can talk about how you can go about getting pre-approved through a lender, and I can go over any of the questions that you have, and then if you decide that you want to have me fully represent you, then we'll just amend this to the more formal agreement that is best for both of us in a situation for long term.
Okay, how long do I have to agree?
For the long term or a short, because
I
this
did
one
a-
I only want to allow for a few days on here, just
Okay.
because I feel like we can see the house. It gives you time to think about it, ask questions, see how you feel, go home, sit on it. But after that, the agreement I like to do is usually around 6 months for a long term, just because we don't know how long it's going to take you to find a home. You know, once you do find a home, it might take some negotiation time. Most transactions are about 30 days, give or take. We won't know the seller situation. They might need longer. You might even need longer. So I like to do 6 months because I feel like that's a good amount of a lot of time. And if it needs to extend, we can amend that at any point to extend it if you'd like to.
Okay. Yeah, I like the full service for 3 days, and that way my wife can tell me what she wants to do.
Her opinion matters. Her opinion matters. She's the boss.
Yep. Okay.
Okay,
I'm
so
good with
then
short.
if we do that, okay, we'll go to the short and then we see the property and I would say, okay, are you feeling comfortable? You know, do you need some more time to think about a long-term agreement with me? I can also give you the agreement and then you can look over it and then we can sit down and talk about it and I'll go thoroughly with it. And you can ask me any questions because I just want you to fully understand what you're signing and I want you to be comfortable with who you chose.
Okay. Okay, I'm good with the short term for 3 days.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay.
So then we just have them sign.
Do the long term.
Okay, so once we get to the long term, I just have the buyer guide and I just kind of walk them. It shows them the steps that they're going to see throughout it, so that way they kind of know ahead of time. I let them know that I also am like in full. I'm a huge communicator. That is one of my number one things. I also like to ask them, are they a detailed communicator or do they just tell me what I need to do in the moment? Just because I feel like that's just the kind of relationship you need to get to know that person. And then I also tell them that I will let you know these steps ahead of time, but if you ever need a reference back, you have this to keep to do that. And it just talks about inspections and how the buyer will try to negotiate it, your closing checklist and what you need to bring and all that kind of stuff. So then I get to the long form and then I just explain, where everything goes and tell them that this is just an agreement. Again, this is not a contract. It can be terminated at any point. It can be amended at any point. If you want to terminate, I've never had it happen. And if you want to, though, I completely understand. I'm never going to hold you to using me if you did not want to. All I ask is if you just have a conversation with me because I need to know how I can better myself forward. And at that point, just make sure it's in writing to me that you want to terminate. But I hope that never happens.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be the best I can for you. So then I just kind of walk them through. And then, so this is my interpretation of the broker compensation. So broker compensation, it's never been set by law. It's not fixed. It's always been negotiable. Brokers can determine their compensation that they want to charge. Our brokerage does charge 3% of the sales price. However, we will seek that from the seller first, and you'll see that in section B here. Before the NAR settlement, it was very common for the listing agent to put that compensation amount on our MLS system. Now they cannot do that. So it's going to look a few different ways. If you want to go see a property, you're going to have options, and there's going to be a few things that I'm going to do on my end first. So I'm going to get a hold of the listing agent. I'm going to ask, 1, have you had a lot of interest on the property? 2, do you have any offers on the property? And 3, are you offering a broker's compensation, a buyer's broker's agent compensation? And then once I have that information, I'll come to you. You can decide, is this a property that you want to go see? If they are offering compensation, that's great. If not, you have the option to still see that or not. If you want to still go see that home, obviously I can't work for free. So this will be your responsibility at that point. Are you okay with that?
No, I can't afford to pay 3% compensation on top of closing costs and
Yeah.
down payment on a $300,000 house.
You know what? I completely get that because you are already stretching. It takes time, it takes effort to come up with closing costs, come up with your down payment. And so if you choose to only want to see houses where a seller is offering that, we can completely do that. It is up to you on that. If it comes down to a home that is not offering it, obviously I don't never want to hold you up from buying a home that you love. Like that is my job to get you from this point to a closing table. So if it comes to that point, like I said, this can be amended. We'll have a conversation. We'll talk to your lender and figure out what works best for you. Are you okay with that?
I need to talk to my lender. Well, my lender, if the seller was going to pay my, if the lender was going to help me with closing costs, the seller was going to help me with closing costs, and can I add that compensation to my loan? How does that work?
You can't add it to your loan. It's just the seller is taking some of their proceeds and helping you pay that. And so we can have the conversation that if they're willing to offer that and maybe not a buyer's agent compensation, then we can decide how me and you want to divide that. And then we'll have a section in our offer contract that discloses only for your amount allotted for your closing cost assistance. And then we'll also have an amendment that is signed by seller and buyer stating exactly what mine will be.
Okay. Well, you obviously know what you're doing. You've done your homework, and I'm kind of confused. But
Well, I'm here to answer any questions along the way. I'm available pretty much 24/7 for you. So
I've bought lots of houses, and I feel like you're educated and know what you're doing, and I trust your judgment. So
I appreciate
I'll sign
that.
the long form with you.
sounds good. And I'm going to leave this with you because you can always go back and reference it. And I will go home and get electronic signatures ready. That's how I did.
You did good. Any questions or add things? I think she did excellent. Yes, ma'am.
That was really good. I buy
Thank
house
you.
from you.
Yes.
Thank you.
One of the things that Brian in our CE class on Friday told us, he said you can actually use the long form as well as instead of, he was kind of on the committee to help design that form. But he did state that something that I kind of appreciated the language. He said that you can write it in, I think, I'm not sure which paragraph, but there's a paragraph where you can write it in, that this agreement may be terminated at any time by either party.
I would think probably
If
special
that
provision, right?
helps you to overcome that
think so.
fear of
Yeah.
huge getting married, basically. It's kind of
Makes
like
sense.
just getting engaged.
Yeah, that's kind of how I've heard it too. It's like you go from dating to being engaged.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would think probably special provisions. It's a factual business statement. So,
I would think so.
and it's not a contract, it's an agreement. So I would think you could do that.
You know, for years, we've had people in buyer's rep, and they'll break it. What do? Take them
Yeah.
to court or?
And to me, like,
You know?
obviously, I'm not going to continue with that person anyway. I'm not going to hold them to it, even with the protection period, because their experience is supposed to be enjoyable. Like, we're supposed to help them. And so if you're sitting there and you're like, no, I'm still going to represent you, like, by law, I'm not going to let you terminate or whatever, you're not going to make it good for anybody. So just cut your loss. That's my opinion.
I agree.
Is the new form taking the place of the IBS?
No.
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 We still have to do
So I heard a really good way of IBS explaining, and I don't know how, because I know some people, like, they've always taught us to generically talk about the IBS, but I got to where I really, talked about, this is how it's broken down if the brokerage represents you, and this along with your agreement takes you from a client or to a customer to a client. And that way, that helped me and I think them understand, as a customer, this is my service. As a client, this is how I can help you. And so, explaining how those really go hand in hand, that's how I was kind of told. So,
Excellent.
You know your question around what the lender cover that, it's a no, right?
yeah, it is, well, so they said that you can go above the 3% or whatever a seller can pay, just because if it's a dollar amount, because in 12B you're going to put specifically what just concessions are, and then you're going to have the TXR 2406 that is attached to the offer that discloses exactly what yours is. So either way, it's gonna be separated, cause 12B is only for buyer concession. So if you put your full amount in there, it goes towards the buyer. So 2406 is gonna be your portion. And that's always given with the offer. Even whenever it's not fully signed, like you submit your offer to the listing agent, that's gonna be attached to it with however much commission. If they didn't give you an amount, I'm gonna put 3%.
Right.
And if that's not what they wanna pay me, they can negotiate it out. But that has to be attached, but they have to be separate because 12B is only for buyer concessions. Does that make sense? No?
And the 12B can still, like on an FHA, go up to 6%,
It
and
can.
you have this.
It
buyer's
can,
fee?
as long as yours is in
Okay.
2406
But it has
only.
to appraise.
Okay, for both?
Always.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the only thing.
Yeah.
That's the only sticky part, I feel like. Cause I mean, well, it depends on how you're looking at it. Like,
Well, I mean.
it's a sell, cause the seller's offering that to them. It's not them paying it or rolling it in. I mean, it's coming off of the amount that they're bringing to
Right.
closing. The only part that it would come to it, I would think, is if you got in a situation where had, the buyer's paying you and they're rolling in your amount, it would have to be appraising at that point, which I think is
So it
terrible.
would have to be in the sale price.
So you're
whether
like
or not-
saying.
Yeah.
Offer,
Is that
make an
how you
offer.
do
You-
it?
Yeah, cause you know how we used to kinda do that, like you'd have the
3%
offer
over.
price and then, yeah, and then you do that, but now it has to appraise. And I've talked to a
If it
few of.
appraised then, it's always had to appraise.
Yeah, it's always had to appraise, but there was a different communication. So I've been talking to some appraiser friends, and I'm like, because I had a meeting with an attorney that's on broker lawyer committee, and she was saying that appraisers know what's going on, and they need to be asking like what commission was done, because that's going to determine also with your comps. But that's not how it works around here, really. So I was calling appraiser friends, and they were like, I haven't really heard of that, but, you know, it might be a good idea to ask, because I know that y'all's commissions are gonna be cutting short. And so he was like, it's something that we've always kind of talked about in the last few weeks, is what I've been told, but there's nothing definite like what they have to do in order to help that appraise if something like that were to happen. So I feel like that's a gray area we don't know yet. Unless you have a better answer.
No, I think we're just gonna have to get into it and roll with it a little bit and learn
Yeah.
from each other.
And it's all gonna change.
Yeah.
I mean, it's changing. Okay, I have a question though, for about the listing. So as I said, like I've talked to some friends that are working for the more corporate, and they are directly going to 5B in compensation. And they're leaving out 5A, which shows both sides of compensation. And because even that attorney told me, like, they feel like 5A is gonna go away and it's gonna go straight to 5B. And they explained it as if, like when you're doing your listing presentation, you're like, I am putting my commission only in this part because I am here to represent you. It's not my place to sit there and negotiate out a buyer's compensation. That's what these corporate brokers are telling them to say. And so
I
they're
think
like,
EXP
you can
did that.
choose
EXP did
Westmark too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Basically, like you have to go
and Coldwell Banker.
as a buyer rep, you have to go and fight for your commission, right?
Yeah, so they're having them automatically just put, this is mine, and it is your choice on when you get an offer to decide what you
Yep.
wanna do.
No?
That's nice.
And I'm like, wow, that's not really supporting each other, but, like, so what are your thoughts? Like, should we try to go straight to 5B, or
Like
should
you're
we
saying
stick
they
with
put like
A?
6, and then according to the deal,
No, you can only put like your 3% in 5B, cause that is just for the listing side.
okay.
And then there's a box in, I think it's paragraph 11, that chooses, that the seller can choose to, check if they want them to disclose if there's gonna be any compensation offer, and they don't have to disclose an amount. So what would happen is, if the buyer agent calls and says, you know, are they offering, can you give me an amount? They're like, what kind of offer are you gonna bring?
Mm-hmm.
That's how they're going. And I just
Dang.
feel like it's icky.
I hadn't thought about that really. I'm still of the opinion, I'd like the full commission showing.
Yeah.
Because that's less confusing to a seller.
Yeah.
Because a seller is gonna put their house on the market in 4 months, they're gonna get a contract, and they say, oh, wait a minute, I just have to pay 3% instead of this full commission.
That's true.
But until they make us do it, I
Stick
kinda like
with the
putting the
5A.
full commission in
Okay.
there.
We all just be prepared when y'all come across
5A.
Westmark and all
The
that.
listing agreement.
Or whatever
Or
percentage.
5% or 6%.
Yeah, whatever you're listing it for.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, because of the code of ethics, I think it's number 16, we were not allowed, some some people did, but if something was posted at 2.5, it was against our code of ethics to try to negotiate that. Now it's wide open. So if you wanted, and something's being paid less than what you feel you should be paid, you can negotiate it.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean the buyer or the seller has to do it, but you can negotiate now.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you have your buyer's rep signed, you know, so.
Of course,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's negotiable and it can be amended. I think the main thing going into this is be confident when you talk to your clients, whether you're listing or represent a buyer, knowing that we're gonna have learning curves, and then make sure you get paid, you know, make sure you send the broker's compensation to the title company and say what each side's gonna get.
Which is TXR 2402.
2402, yep.
2406 goes with the offer.
Right.
And 24 and that will go to the lender, and 2402 goes to the title company with the contract. Is how I've been told. Is that how you've been told?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Can
And-
you repeat that?
TXR 2406 goes with your offer to the listing agent, signed by buyer and seller. 2402 is signed by listing agent and buyer's agent and goes with the contract to the title company. And I actually go over that with my buyers and sellers, and I show the forms in here. And I
Good.
say, this is what it's gonna look like, this is what you're gonna be signing, and it's just a clear layout of how compensation is dispersed.
I think what's interesting is that, and I think there's a little fear out there that one listing agent might tell one agent that the compensation is XYZ, but tell another one of his buddies that, no, it's actually more. I mean, we'll wait and see,
Yeah.
I feel like we're all gonna learn.
but it
It's
can
gonna
happen.
be-
Yeah, I can see.
Hopefully those will be the ones that get
I was
mean,
gonna
if
say,
you have
like-
somebody you don't wanna work with.
I can see an in-house deal working like
Well,
that.
there was bad eggs
About
before
that.
this all came
That's
about,
true.
you know, so
That's
they'll
true.
still be bad eggs, but hopefully most are good.
And it might weed out a
Ethical
lot, and
people.
those ones who are strong are gonna sit there and come afloat above everybody else. Cause it might be tough conversations, and some of these other ones won't do it.
Well, she
I
created
just
that.
created my own.
You'll have
Yeah,
the
I did it on
forms.
Canva.
Yeah.
I use Canva a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, you could probably Google it if you don't have Canva. There's different ones. I don't know. I've never fully Googled, but
Well,
I have a listing one too. But
you did excellent and you're well prepared, and that's, I appreciate it.
It's nerve-wracking. Thank you.
Any other questions? It's been kind of a long meeting, but I think we needed this. I thought this was a good way to go over things, so,
Yep.
but. Our next sales meeting will be September 10th. We are still getting new agents. Hopefully the rates will keep going down. We're about 54 million in sales already this year, so and it's not a real busy year, so I think next year we could do 100 million. I really do. Be sure and use Christy. She is awesome with flyers and help with DocuSign, and watch for her emails. And Johnny is always available, very knowledgeable. Just let us know. Call me. I know there's going to be some learning curves. You get into a deal, call me. We'll figure it out. We'll get it right. So, anybody have anything else? We've gone a little over time today.
And I have added some forms, if you are using DocuSign to send your e-signatures and develop your rooms. So whenever you use the DocuSign library, there are templates that I've made for contracts, for listing and for purchase. So I have added these new forms in those templates, so you'll be seeing those when you create your rooms and documents.
We're still trying to figure out the best way to advertise compensation too on our website. we got to work on that. But,
They be variable by listing.
yeah,
I think the sign's great, that doesn't have an amount.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So,
Can you just put that
on the website,
on the website?
yeah, we can figure out. Christy's the master of that. So,
I mean, is it legal to just put that on?
yeah, yeah, as long as it's 2 clicks away, he said.
So if they look at a house, if we have it on there, they're gonna see that.
Uh-huh.
There's somewhere a blurb in there that says negotiable by, not negotiable, but
Broker's compensation,
it just depends on the listing.
yeah, yeah.